what's come to me about that, and how I live my life. I just consider myself a human being who's being guided to do whatever I'm doing in each moment. and what happens in doing that is what people call shaman, living in two worlds at the same time, living in the visible world and the invisible world, seeing into things without seeing, hearing things without hearing, and being aware of the fact that within that invisible world is where 99% of the information exists. Most people are not in touch with that because of the intellect. When we live within the intellect, then we're living in a very short-sighted way. However, that intellect is sacred, it's holy, and it's to show us all of the things we're not to do. So you eventually, looking at it that way, you see that every time you do something intellectually, that layers peel off. And as those layers peel off of the intellect, your understanding about what's really going on broadens and comes about in that way. The invisible realm is where all of the ancestors are situated. And all of our teachers, the major teachers, come from those invisible realms. And when you're in the intellect, you can't find the key to the doorway of that invisible realm. You have to let go of that intellect, and when you can do that, then all information is available to you. That doesn't mean I know anything. It's this human being that I am, and people who are called shaman that are aware that we know nothing. We know nothing, therefore our minds aren't trying to figure things out, and information then is easily accessible to help us help other human beings. Basically, the one called shaman, when you get to that place, then you're aware that you're put on this earth to be a servant of the other people on this earth and help them see how to travel that path where they can come to the place where judgments do not exist, where they can come to the place of good health. The place where judgments exist is the place that brings people into hospitals, into doctors' offices, and if everybody was in the place where they were able to sit still, be quiet, and listen to everything that's there without judging it, there would never be a need for a doctor or a hospital. So a person that's called shaman, and truly living in that way, has no need for pharmaceutical drugs, has no need for any kind of medical intervention in our life. Yeah, that's very limited also, but most people are in a place where they've been trained that if they get sick, then they're to go to the hospital. We're here to help people see that judgment is the source of all sickness, and when we're able to come to a place of acceptance, then we're going to live a healthy life. So that's some of the things that you ask about shaman. Well, see, once again, I don't call myself anything. Yeah. Other people call me different things. and they're welcome to call me whatever they want to. And so some people, they do call me shaman. Well, to come to that place, you know, in my life, I had to experience extremes of pain and suffering. See, I had to know what that is. How am I going to help people get themselves removed from pain and suffering if I don't know what it is? See, so in my life, I had to become aware of what that pain and suffering is all about. Pain and suffering is there to get our attention. And, you know, after we have enough pain and suffering, we have enough wars, we have enough imbalance, we get tired of that, and we start looking for another way. Now, in my early life, I was born into a situation in Oklahoma where anybody with native blood, Indian blood, was considered an animal. Okay, so I grew up in my early years being told that I was an animal, and accepting, you know, that's what that was, and I wasn't aware it could be any other way. I had a German grandmother who had come over from Europe, who lived on that farm, and she saw that it was her job to beat the Indian out of me so I could become a human being. Well, she beat the Indian out of me for several years, and I didn't know there was another way to live life. So I was just living in acceptance. I wasn't mad at anybody. I knew it hurt. And so when she saw that she wasn't going to be able to do that, she turned me over to a Catholic priest. I got put in a Catholic residential school in Muskogee, Oklahoma, and then what happened there was the Brothers of the Sacred Heart, they thought their job was to beat the Indian out of me. So I got to experience living in what I call living in the fire of change. I was born into that. You know, and you know, I've lived with you know, Hindus. I've lived with Buddhists. I've lived with fundamental Christians. I've lived with Catholics, Baptists. I've lived with you know, many different people. And there was a woman in the Hindu teachings who, in her lifetime, she experienced extreme pain and suffering. She was killed by the men, and as she was leaving the earth, she saw that it was her job to come back and to be born into a state of extreme pain and suffering so she could be an example that we could actually live in that place and be an example of peace, be an example of thankfulness, be an example of love. So through all the pain in my life, all the hurt in my life, it has come to me that I'm to live in that place in the fire of change, where regardless of what's happening around me, regardless of the hurt, regardless of the pain, that I remain an example of peace. And that's truly shaman. If you can live in that example of peace in this world today, then you know you ought to be able to accept any kind of title. But so. Since I did not grow up in that Indian way, because of just how things were in those days, and there weren't any Indian people really growing up in that way, even though they were Indian and I was Indian. I'm a member of the Oklahoma Choctaw Nation, but I was never really taught anything about those ways. Most of the people, when I came along, Native people had already kind of moved away from those ways, and many of them would not even admit that they were Indian because of the treatment being received. So, but I would say once again, the hurt, the pain, were some of the greatest teachings that I had along the way, which now have enabled me to help others work through those things. In my life, I ended up in Vietnam for 2.5 years and living in the jungles over there of Vietnam. And that in itself was another great teaching. I found out about war, and what came to me about that is that I went to war to learn about peace. So that was a situation that started teaching me that I had to be different. I couldn't be warfaring, I couldn't be hurting other people in any way. I was in a state of confusion after that. I lived 11 years of my life in a heavy drug addiction. That was another great teacher for me, because if I hadn't been in that drug addiction, if I hadn't learned about the effect of all these drugs, I wouldn't be able to help people who are addicted to drugs now, at least not with the ability I had to do that. Through the drug addiction, I ended up going to prison. That was another one of my great teachers. This is different than most people who, you call shaman, or most people who are doing these ceremonies. I was given lots and lots of intensive training. This was my training program I'm telling you about here. Okay?
Yeah.
And so I ended up going to prison. And in prison, I got great help in prison. And I was happy to go to prison because I knew I was going to get the drugs out of my life. And I'm one of the few people you'll ever hear say that I enjoyed being in prison. I had a good time being in prison because I knew I could either enjoy it or not enjoy it. I could either accept it or not accept it. So I came to the place that I was going to enjoy it and I was going to accept it, that it was benefiting me. And one of the things, the drugs leaving my life. And it was in prison that I started meeting other Native people, who had lived some of the ways and knew some of the teachings. So there were several Native people in that prison where I was, and for the first time I heard about some of the ceremonies, about the pipe ceremony, about the vision quest ceremony, about the sun dance, about the medicine wheel. And immediately things opened up within me, and I was fully aware that I was already had those things within me, and being in prison and coming to those people just helped that unfold for me. One thing that happened to me in prison was that there was a man who would come into prison to help, and he actually came from the voodoo tradition in Haiti. And so for 2 years in a row while I was in prison, he came to the prison, and I was able to be with him for those 2 weeks, for the 2 years. When I got out of prison, he came and stayed with me for the next 3 years, for 2 weeks each year. And so it was through this man in particular, that I learned and remembered, because we already have everything inside of us. We forget that, and remembered that the relationship with the invisible spirit world is the real relationship. The relationship with the intellectual world is a very temporary relationship. So anyway, he shared various ceremonies with me and gave me different directions on how to help people. Also in prison, there was a man there who had lived as a Zen Buddhist monk for 10 years, and I was brought into relationship with him, and he shared with me a meditation, Zazen meditation, which helped me completely clear my mind. Just almost immediately, I was able to do that meditation in fullness. And for the 2 years that I was in that prison, I would do it for an hour every morning. I would skip lunch, and I would do it at lunchtime, and I would do it for an hour every evening. And you know, if I hadn't been in prison, I never would have taken the time to do these things. So I had to be there. Creator said, Sequoyah, it's time for you to sit down, you know, and be quiet, be still, and start listening, okay? So, you know, that's how things unfolded in my life. And at one point, I got sent out to North Carolina because I had a large prison sentence there, and here's how large it was: 41 years. But I knew I wasn't going to have to do that. It was already clear to me that I wasn't going to have to do that 41 years. And within 6 months, the governor of North Carolina had released me, and the medicine man for the Wolf Clan in Cherokee, North Carolina, had been coming to visit me and talking to me and questioning me and looking into my life and everything that I'd done. And he came one day, and at one point he said, Sequoyah, he says, I know several things about you now. You've killed people, you've been a thief, you've been a liar, you've been a manipulator, you've been a drunk, you've been a drug addict, you've rolled around in the gutter in the whale poop. He says, you're the perfect person to do a youth healing program for us on the Cherokee Reservation. So I was taken from the prison to North Carolina, where I lived in a little log cabin in the mountain there for several years, and I worked with the Cherokee youth. And what was great about that was that eventually members of other nations had heard about what we were doing. And there were 22 nations, native nations, east of the Mississippi River. And representatives of each one of those nations came to Cherokee, North Carolina, and said they would support us putting in a youth healing program there. And the federal government came forth and said they would help finance it. And so the last couple of years that I was in Cherokee, I found myself doing that work. And what was so great about that for me personally was that the medicine people from those 22 different nations would come and visit. And so I had opportunities to share with all of them. But the greatest teachers of all for me in those mountains, those Smoky Mountains of North Carolina, the way those Smoky Mountains are called, the home of the ancient ones. The home of the ancient ones. But those young people were the greatest teachers for me. You know, they pulled my chain in every direction. You know, they tested me in every way. And I was able to come to the point there where I was able to just let them do that and realize that was helping me look into myself. I did not understand what this thing meant when people said that everyone is a mirror to you. I didn't understand that then, but those young people helped me understand that. If they were screaming and yelling at me, if I screamed and yelled back, there's no way I'm helpful to them. I was not giving them a good example. And so I came to the place where I saw that when I was screamed and yelled at, that those people doing the screaming and the yelling are the ones who needed help. And that if I was able to be there with a steady, clear mind, then I could be helpful. If I screamed and yelled back, then I was just responsible for doubling that energy field of pain, of hurt, of suffering, and nothing was getting resolved. So, but when I was able to get to that place of a relaxed mind, of a clear mind, then I started seeing what it meant to be a mirror. They were actually showing me who I was, just like it's like that for all of us in life, all of us in this life, that the ones coming before us and making life what seems to be the hardest for us, they're our best teachers. Because once again, they help you eventually come to the place where you become quiet and you become still and you're able to actually listen to those who are screaming out for help, without just causing the situation to develop deeper in that other direction. So, there's a process that develops in our life, and it's very simple. It's very simple. This is where I started to come into the place where I saw that thankfulness was the key that opened the door to peace. And I was able to see that I could never be peaceful if I wasn't thankful for everything that came my way. I could see that everything that came my way, every contrary spirit that came my way, every hurtful situation that came my way, every situation that used to drag me down, into that gutter again that came my way, was actually the best teacher I had here on this Mother Earth. So I learned to be thankful. And once I was thankful, then the mystery is not a mystery anymore. The way it unfolds is that when you're thankful, you're not in judgment of others. Judgment of others is one of the things that makes us sick. It makes these hospitals profitable. It makes these doctors very wealthy because of our judgments, because that's what makes us sick. And so I saw that I was to be non-judgmental. That means that I was forgiving of everyone, and that I was accepting of everything that came my way as being a teacher to help me rise to a higher place in consciousness. So when I started getting to that place, then I could really be helpful to those young people who had helped me see that. Then I was standing before them and coming before them in calmness, in gentleness, in a state of unconditional love, and just a state of a quiet, serene being. So and once again, having all of those elders around me all the time was very helpful. This pipe, in the Lakota language, is chanupa, a great Lakota man and teacher made this pipe for me, Harry Charger. This is not the first pipe I've had. I've had many. The first one came to me in Cherokee, North Carolina, when a man would come to the treatment center from down in Alabama. His name was Otter, and he would be observing me and paying attention to how I was dealing with the young people and how my behavior was. And so one day when he came up to the treatment center, he presented me with the first pipe that I received, and that was back in the early 1980s in that area there. And so the word of the work we were doing there in Cherokee, North Carolina, spread around, and I did not start, that program there. There was a great human being named Earl Davis, who had already been working with the kids in outdoor programs there in those North Carolina mountains. And so when I came there, he was a teacher for me of how to work in the circle with these young people. And it's when I first started coming into an awareness of the power of the circle and how every single thing, everything can be resolved within that circle. So Earl Davis is the one who started this program. It was called the Cherokee Challenge, and it had support of the tribal leadership, and they were very happy about how things were unfolding there. Once again, in this program, it was those young people who kept reminding me that I had to be that mirror of thankfulness to them, that mirror of forgiveness to them, of acceptance to them, before I could ever hope to be the mirror of peace to them. And when you finally come to that place of peace, then it's only then that you can see the fullness of love. That's the only time. People are running around all the time on this Mother Earth saying, I love you, I love you, I love you, not having any idea what love is. Love means that you're not in judgment of anyone, that you're not judging anyone for anything whatsoever. Someone can come up and spit in your face, hit you with their fist, and you would still love them just the same. Nothing's going to change that love when it's true love. So we have to be in that place of peace, which comes through the acceptance. This drum here, I can hold this up. This drum is a picture of what I'm talking about. The heart is at the center of all things, that love. So but this is where the teachings start. Up here at the top is the great thanks that fills creation. And you keep working toward that great thank. You keep praying and doing ceremonies and purification lodges and sun dances and giving thanks that you're coming to an awareness of what this great thanks is. And when that great thanks finally comes into your life through the help of many situations and many people, the spirit of that thankfulness will move you around the great circle of life. And it will take you to this place of peace that I'm talking about. And then this place of peace, the spirit of peace, then will carry you further around the great circle of life until you come to this place of the great love that fills creation. And then you're there in the fullness of existence. You're in that place where no one can hurt you anymore. It's like you're in touch with that invisible spirit. Invisible spirit can't be cut, can't be burned, can't be hurt, and that's who 99% of each one of us are, that invisible spirit. So this is a picture of what I went through in my life. And the heart is always at the center of all things. Back in those days there when I was learning about this, I would always be blaming my mind. Always be blaming my mind for the situation I was in. My mind is doing this, my mind is doing that, my mind's driving me crazy, my mind, is causing me to go in directions off that path of love. Well, what I found out was that my mind wasn't doing anything. My mind was not doing anything. My mind was sitting there quiet and still, and that's always the way that the mind is. Now, the things that I was hurting about, I would stuff down inside the heart and stick them in a little closet there, thinking they were gone. But they weren't gone. They were in there, and the mind is the reflector of what we put in the heart. So the mind was just reflecting all this garbage I was trying to put in this beautiful heart and get it out of the way. And the mind was reflecting that back to me. So then, when I came into awareness of that, then that just gave me another level of understanding and ability to work deeper with other human beings. Well, in the larger, context of things, healing has to do with us following a path that has been given to us, and that path has been known eternally for each one of us. This, what I have in front of me here with these different objects, the rattles, the pipe, the drums, the sage, the sweetgrass, all of those things are items that help us keep our mind on this healing path. To me, there's just one ceremony, and that ceremony is life. And the prayer that we have and the healing that happens in our life is the way we walk within this life. When our ancestors left this Mother Earth, many of them had left unresolved issues, and those issues had to do with everything. They had to do with killing, they had to do with child abuse, abuse of the woman by the man by the woman. They had to do with anything that we could talk about that would be out of balance. So for us to be able to heal these unresolved issues of the ancestors, we have to walk into those situations. We have to be able to be aware of the depth of the situation, the breadth, the height of those situations. And then by us doing certain things there, we're able to finally bring healing and resolution. For instance, let's just say that a mother has lost her daughter by someone who has killed her. Okay? Then the only way that situation is going to be resolved is if that mother can come to the place where she can forgive that person who did that to her daughter. This is an extreme situation, and it's not easy. The path isn't easy. But that man will end up getting put in prison, and in prison, our job in prison is not to be executing people, but our job in prison is to help them see what they've done, and so they change their life. And that this woman who has lost the daughter is helpful in that process by being in forgiveness. I've learned in my own life to be able to forgive anybody for anything, because if I don't, then I'm just placing myself in pain and that hurt and that suffering we were talking about earlier. Now, these items that we're talking about that we use in ritual, they're only there to help us remember that life is the only ceremony. They're there to help us remember how to walk in this life in a healing way, like the sweat lodge ceremony. We go into that sweat lodge when we've got heavy hearts, we've got sadness, we've got upsetness over many different things, and we go into that lodge and we say prayers of thankfulness for help, and we get that help, and then those things end up changing in our lives. This drum that we have, the drum is in the circle. The circle reminds us of the great ceremony of life. The circle reminds us of the structure of creation. The circle helps us remember that the universe turns in a circle, the galaxy turns in a circle, the solar system we're in turns in a circle, the earth turning in a circle, and so we've forgotten that that's teaching us that we have to live within the circle. That what we do here on this earth, for the most part, we develop hierarchies, straight up and down lines where someone's always in charge and someone's at the top and then somebody else is at the bottom. we're always going to have wars with those kinds of situations. The ones at the bottom are going to be unhappy with the ones at the top. Whereas if you're able to live within the circle, then everyone is equal in that circle. We can talk about that circle as a spirit canoe. Just imagine that everyone who's ever existed, is existing or will exist, is riding in this giant spirit canoe, and that it's going across the sea of consciousness, and that everyone has a different seat in that spirit canoe. So everyone is going to see that journey just a little bit differently, because their view is different, their perspective is different. And it's like that in life. If we live in the circle, it's just like that spirit canoe. Everybody's going to look at the center in a little bit different way, but everybody's also going to be able to see that the way the other person sees it is just as valid as the way that each one sees it in a different way, but every way is valid. Every way is valid. And it's very healing to do it in that way. The wars going on this earth right now, especially, over there in the Mideast and what's happening there, they're all being fought over differences in perspective, and it's because we do not live according to the teachings of the circle. We live according to the hierarchies, where we think somebody has to be at the top, somebody at the bottom. But wars are useful also, and what war finally teaches us is to quit participating in war. This earth was made for peace. All the tools are here, and we're moving back to those tools now. And every single thing that has happened on this earth is a journey toward peace. So rituals remind us of all these things that I'm speaking about. Every ritual, every song, like every song that we have is a song of healing, and it's a song of peace. Every song. So if I were to, I'll just sing briefly part of a song, and which will say, will give the name of a spirit, and that spirit could be the sacred mystery, that spirit could be creator, that spirit could be these mountains here, the spirit could be the breath, the water, the fire, the sun, Mother Earth, the moon, the star people. It could be that. So we have to stay in touch with our relationships with all those that I just mentioned. So we might sing a song something like this. Aluna ho dunia yo hey yo hey. Aluna ho dunia yo hey yo hey yo hey yo hey yo hey. Sirankwa o dunia yo hey yo hey. Sirankwa o dunia yo hey yo hey yo hey yo hey. Gwelkana ho dunia yo hey yo hey. Gwelkana o dunia yo hey yo hey yo hey yo hey yo hey. Anungsa o dunia yo hey yo hey. Anungsa o dunia yo hey yo hey yo hey yo hey. Now that I just sang part of a song, and that song then helps us stay in touch with what I call the sacred mystery, what many people call God, our relationship with God. It helps us remember that that's part of our life, that I gave thanks for the Creator that brought all this beautiful view together that we're sitting in here right now. And so it reminds me to be thankful for that relationship with God and to put that God first in my life. Then I said thank you to the mountains. These mountain spirits are powerful. They change the wind in a moment, just like it has for us since we've been sitting here. Maybe on this film you won't see those changes that happen, but it caused us to do things differently, and that's what that wind will do. But then we remember to be thankful for the spirit of the wind, and then I said We're thankful for the spirit of the breath. We call that breath the breath of life. See, so we remember that kind of thing in ritual. And if it wasn't for that breath, we wouldn't be here right now. It's the breath of life. So rituals in any form, are helpful. Getting up in the morning is a ritual. We get up in the morning, and if we say for the first thing that we say, thank you for this breath. Thank you for this day. Thank you for guiding us on this path today and taking care of us, your children. And helping us remember that whatever it is we're doing this day, that's exactly what you've given us to do, Creator. That's a ritual, a simple one. We've got more elaborate ones, like the sweat lodge, the purification lodge ceremony, like the sun dance, like the Uwepi ceremony, like the vision quest, the rite of passage ceremony. They're all rituals that help us keep our life in focus. If we don't have rituals in our life, we're going to walk around like blind people, because the intellect will attract us to physical things and take us away from who we are and the purpose of what we're doing here to resolve and heal those unresolved issues of our ancestors so we can all live in peace here on this Mother Earth. Well, first part of your question there, when you said things are turning out very badly, see, that's how I used to look at it. And to me, everything has to be working out exactly the way it is for us to even move to a place where we take good care of that baby. We spend a lot of time not taking good care of our children and ourselves, and we see the results of that now. Things are chaotic, but the chaos is good because it's a great teacher. We're uncomfortable there, and it makes us change. Now, on the medicine wheel of life, we come into this world as an invisible spirit. We come in through a hole over the South Pole as that invisible spirit. And we come in to the womb of our mother. Now, as soon as we come into the womb of our mother, there in the South, as soon as we enter that womb, already the teachings of that child are being started. Every experience the woman has while that child is in the womb is going to manifest in some way in that child's life. So, the way that it was done long ago, and it would be really nice to see it that way again, that when a woman is pregnant and carrying the new life, is that there's family members around her who ensure that nothing out of balance is going on around that woman, that there's no man around that's going to be hitting that woman, slapping that woman, cussing in front of that woman, doing anything out of balance around that woman. There's to be an uncle there and an aunt there who are with that woman and ensuring that no one comes around under those kinds of circumstances. See? Because once again, every experience that woman has while she's carrying that child will be manifested by that child when that child comes out of the womb and starts walking this path around the great circle of life. So, and then we want to pay attention to what that child is doing for us. See? While it's in the womb, and also when it comes out of that womb, that child is a great teacher to us adults about innocence, open-mindedness, non-judgmentalism, unconditional love. And see, we hardly ever give any thought to anything like that anymore. Because what we're to do is we're to take care of that child by helping that child form a good solid foundation. And in the native way around the medicine wheel, we would say that the animal that helps us do that in the South would be the turtle. And so we help our children understand how to be like a turtle. That turtle moves very slowly. That turtle moves from place to place, looking at everything and paying attention to everything, not getting in any hurry. That's how we have to treat our children and help them learn to be that way, to have that strong foundation first. Now, what's happening on Mother Earth today, as soon as a woman gets pregnant, already the woman and the father are planning for that child to be like the eagle. They forget all about the turtle. They forget all about the teachings of the bear along the way that helps with stability. They forget all about the teachings along the way of the results of self-pride that slow us down. They forget about the teachings of humility. All they want is for that child to be the eagle. So if we're teaching our children to be like the eagle, before we teach our children to be like the turtle, then our child somewhere along the way is going to crash and burn. There's lots and lots of suicide on this earth today of young men and women who have gone on through university without those turtle teachings and gone into business and gotten so disappointed and dismayed that they've committed suicide. It happens a lot because the strength of that turtle is not in the teachings that is to prepare that child how to walk upon this earth.